Welcome, everybody, to Paul Beckman's International F-Bomb reading. I'm Francine Witte. I'm hosting for Paul tonight and being assisted by Myna Chang, our technical co-host, in case anything happens. She's our girl, So we have a great reading, great lineup of fashionistas coming at you tonight. We have two book celebrations. One, Kathryn Kulpa, her new book, and I'll introduce Kathryn, then she has three readers that she's chosen to read from her book and also from their own work. And then she'll turn it back to me. I'll introduce Sarah Freligh, who also is celebrating a new book tonight, and she's also got three readers. And then after that, I've asked for additional readers to just read a piece, guest readers. Okay, so anyway, let's get started. Kathryn Kulpa, I'm going to start with Kathryn. Kathryn Kulpa was born in a small state, and she writes very short stories. Her flash fiction chapbook, Cooking Tips for the Demon Haunted, is released by New Rivers Press. She is also the author of a chapbook, Girls on Film, a story collection, Pleasant Drugs, and a micro chapbook, Who's the Skirt, published by the Origami Poems Project. Kathryn's stories can be found in the Disappointed Housewife, Flash Boulevard, South Florida Review, Ghost Parachute, 100-Word Story, Monkey Bicycle, Moon City Review, Pithead Chapel, Smokehead Quarterly, and other journals. Her work has been selected for Best Microfiction and the Big Leaf Long List. She is flash editor for Cleaver Magazine, where she also leads writing workshop. Find out more at KathrynKulpa.com. Kathryn Kulpa.
Thanks, Francine. So I read and then my other three readers. Okay. All right. I'm going to start with a couple of stories from my new collection. And I'll start with the title story and then Cooking Tips for the Demon Haunted. Keep those demons at bay is what Mama always said, for they will try and try to find a way in, and they are many, and they are everywhere. Even now, standing in the kitchen as I am, a demon is beside me. If a bird flies into your window and leaves a trail of feathers and blood, it is a demon bringing bad luck. If white roses grow where you planted azaleas, a demon sowed the seed. If the paint separates and the color will not fix, a demon dipped his brush. If the beans sour in the soup, a demon stirred the pot. If the rice burns in the pan, a demon fanned the flame. If a young woman twists and turns on a high wire, rope of braid hanging down, she is a demon in pleasing form, and that rope is the noose she holds for your husband or for you. Too many demons crowd my head. They snap and fly like hot grease on a cast iron frying pan, spanging through the sky, leaping and multiplying. They are all busy going somewhere, and here I stand as the water boils away, leaving a smell of brimstone. Are you feeling well, child? Mama asks, her fingers cool against my forehead. Surely this is Mama's hand, the hand I've always known, so white and dry and cold. Thank you. And the next story in the book is called Bricolage. This was originally published in Smokelong Quarterly. Recipe card. I sob into the meatloaf. No one must know. I knead my tears into the breadcrumbs. They fall against shiny egg white. In the end, everything combines. Everyone smiles as they eat my tears. Extra good meatloaf, Mom, they say. I make a note for future reference. Use more salt. Baseball game. That night in a dream, I saw Jerry at a baseball game. I sat at the top in the bleachers. He wore sunglasses and a hat I'd never seen him wear, but I knew it was him. He came and sat next to me. We got peanuts, even though in real life, I never eat peanuts anymore, do I? Because of Kimmy's nut allergy. I wanted to ask if he was still dead, but it seemed like a rude question. So I just asked if he had to go back soon. He said no. He had the whole day off. We kissed. I tasted peanut salt on his lips. Newcastle. When I married Ross, I gave everything old away. I only kept 3 dresses, daytime and night and best. Our house was new, an open plan, lots of sunlight, no room for ghosts. Don't tell me about other men you've known, he said. I don't want to feel them between us. Picture windows, a skylight, a Florida room, they call it. In the living room, French doors. I could step through them and walk to the ocean. The breeze lifts the thin net curtain. Air that smells like oyster brine. No room for shadows. Even the piano is white. Every so often, it plays by itself. I pretend not to notice. For a change of taste, I'm just going to read something that was just published yesterday. And this is based on my scandalous great-great-grandmother, Jessie, called Why Jessie Was Turned Down by the DAR, 1916. It wasn't only the divorce, though divorce was bad enough, goodness knows. Jessie had all her Drakes in a row. Melzar begat Francis, begat Laban, and old Melzar Drake had marched with the Minutemen sure enough. But Jessie's numbers didn't add up. The months between her first marriage and her first child, between the divorce and that hasty second marriage, that Jessie, sitting in church with her children by 2 fathers, pretending to be a respectable housewife, legs crossed, a loose thread peeking from her too short skirt, a thread all the men longed to pull. A loose thread could unravel a stocking, could unravel everything. And there was the incident of the bowler hat. Jessie in the back seat of a jalopy parked out on Reservoir Road. Mabel Bennett's husband had seen them. A gentleman in a bowler hat, Mr. Bennett thought, until that gentleman turned around and he saw it was Jessie. Jessie wearing some man's bowler hat and not a stitch else. And the worst thing was, Mabel Bennett said, that Jessie didn't scream or cover herself. She looked at Mabel's husband, bold as brass, and laughed. And that was the reason, when Jessie's application came before the board, not one lady present contested the red stamp that said, rejected. I think I have time for one more. And I chose this one based on today's weather, at least for some of us. And this was published in Emerge Literary Journal. It's called Heat, New York City, 1975. One of those August days when the heat presses its huge, sweaty hand down on your neck, and every blouse you change into wilts against your burning skin. When you fill the bathtub and flap your feet like a duck and think how maybe drowning wouldn't be so bad as long as the water was cold. A week of that heat, and no AC, of course, not in that shitty apartment. And we were riding the subway to my mom's, the girls all dressed up for their dance audition, though God knows how I'd pay for it. If they got in, I'd have to ask my mom for help and hear it all again. How if I'd married a decent man instead of that druggy bum, I wouldn't be raising 2 kids on my own in a 1-bedroom apartment and borrowing money to keep food in their mouths and clothes on their backs, let alone dance lessons. Where was that going to get them? I should send them to computer camp. That was the wave of the future. On and on like a mosquito buzzing in my ear. We hadn't even got to her place yet, but I could hear it all in my head like we'd been and gone. And so when we finally got up to her apartment and leaned on the bell and she didn't come to the door, I thought, what the fuck? Like I'd just been talking to her and where had she gone? only she didn't come and didn't come, and I kept pressing the bell and pounding the steel door. I thought she had the TV on loud or was in the shower or something. The girls kept lying down to try to see under the door, but I told them not to get their dresses dirty. And then it was 5 minutes, and then it was 10, and I got scared and knocked on the neighbor's door and asked if he could call the police, and he said he would. And he said how hot we all looked. Would we like to come in for a Coke? And the waves of air conditioning lapping over us from his open door, and the kids hissing, please, please. And he looked like a nice enough guy, whatever that means, because like my mother always says, I wouldn't know a nice guy if he punched me in the face. And I should have wondered why I'd never seen this neighbor before, and why my mother didn't answer the door, and why he was getting ice cubes and pouring drinks and handing out little pink party napkins and doing everything except calling the police. But I was so hot, so damn hot, so tired of being hot, tired of being poor, tired of being tired. And I heard the ice cubes pop when the Coke hit them, and all I could think was how good that first sip would be, how cool it would feel going down. Yeah. Thank you. And I will put a link in the chat so you can purchase my book. I'm selling it directly through my website. There are limited copies, but hopefully there will be enough for everyone who wants one. And it's $10, $12, including postage. Thank you all very much. And I believe now I'm going to introduce my first guest reader, who is Meg Pokrass. Meg Pokrass probably needs no introduction, but Meg's flash fiction has been anthologized in 3 Norton anthologies of flash fiction: Flash Fiction International, New Micro, Exceptionally Short Fiction, and Flash Fiction America. Her work has recently appeared in places like Electric Literature, the Best Small Fictions 2022 and 2023, and the Wigleaf Top 50 list for 2022. She is the series co-editor of Best Microfiction.
Thank you. It's such an honor to be here tonight. Thank you so much for having me. And the first story I'll read is Kathryn's Snow Day. So I'm just going to launch right in. And congratulations, to you and Sarah. And okay, Snow Day. Let's say we spent the night together and woke up to a gift from the universe, that the sheets crackled and sparkled and the air had the thin blue whiteness and silence of a snow day morning, cold and blankety. And I buried my cold nose in your warm, scratchy neck. Your neck was always warm. And let's say we slipper skated to the window, and the window was cake drizzled with snow. The window was soft, focus frosted. And let's say we opened that window just to smell the whispered breath of snow, evanescent as eyelash kisses, both of us watching, while outside the window, cars slid across the parking lot, slow as glaciers, the squeal of brakes or spinning tires muffled by the snow, the holy snow that loved us so, that loved our love, because no work for me, no work for you, a whole day to be snowed in with you, snugly rug wrapped in your blue bedroom, where we only braved the trek to the kitchen to make coffee, those Viennese beans you loved, so black, so bitter, so perfectly me and you. And let's say it was that day, only that day, and not the rest of our lives. It's a great story, Kathryn. I love it. It was such an honor to read it. I'll read one of mine now, and it's coming out in the Northwest Review pretty soon. It's called The Producer. The 90-year-old producer had a hole in his heart, a shaky, unpatchable hole. He wanted me to fill it with kisses, candy, and jokes. I handed him a travel-sized Mars bar that I got on the plane. Only a monkey, he said, would offer this old sack of bones a gift from the red planet. He said this because of my newly red hair. He liked to run his skinny fingers through it. I called him the producer because he had always wanted to produce a movie. Sometimes he asked me to write one, told me to create a character role just for him and to make him younger, less shaky, less married, without Parkinson's. That was easy, as I imagined him a younger person. The nickname Monkey rubbed off on me. There was a gullible monkey on my shoulder, watching the stories he told me about his terrible home life, how his wife carried a loaded pistol around the house, even in her PJs. She never puts it away anymore, he winked. What a horrible person she was, I told myself, kissing his shivery lips. That blouse is very flattering on you, the producer said, his face half fallen. It was the same blouse I had worn every other night in the dining room. I wondered if he had had a mini stroke in his sleep. Half of his face looked younger than the other half, less perceptive. He gazed at me as if I alone provided gravity. The hotels we stayed in had very good food. We would eat in the dining rooms, and middle-aged businessmen would stare with disgusted expressions as the two of us nibbled appetizers and sipped rhubarb gin. They thought he had to be a great uncle or a grandfather, so why was I wearing such a low-cut, decadent blouse? Why were his eyes dripping the rise of my cleavage as if he was pulling himself out of some brackish lake? He's a producer, and I'm in love with him, I wanted to say. Give me a break, I didn't have a dad, I wanted to scream. They would offer me a weak nod as if to say, well, if he croaks tonight, I'm around. My story is filled with love tragedies, and I told the producer all about them. You should write a screenplay about them, he said, and this really cheered me up. The strong young boyfriends would eventually say that they saw our relationship as a weakness. I never knew what that meant. Their muscular legs would take off for runs or bike rides in the early morning. They were running away from me, my mother once said, because often they didn't return. For example, my young husband disappeared after going for a long, mindful ultra run. I like the look of that path, he said, and then I never saw him again. I knew there were mountain lions around, but they never found his bones. Thankfully, I heard from him a few years later. He wrote me a postcard from Jakarta to say that his knees, hips, and spine had finally given out. That's what unhappiness does to you, he wrote. By the time I turned 27, I was tired of the young ones, their perfect bodies and their deeply unsatisfied souls. When I first met the producer, I arrived at my hotel with my dog. I was still married, but my husband had been missing for years. When he hugged me in the lobby of the hotel, I tried not to cry. You're tattered and shabby, he said, or maybe I had imagined it. His skin was yellowed and fragile to the touch. I like your face, I said. I like your dog, he said. We took the elevator up to his hotel room and he put on a Lucinda Williams song. He had an iPad that he didn't know how to use. He said the one thing he was confident about was the music app. Somehow I can always make it sing, he said. The song that plays in my head these days when I remember the producer is Something Always Happens When We Talk. I felt it was corny the first time he played it for me, but now that he is gone, I miss the talks we had, how much he liked my dog, and how much it felt like he was calling to me from someplace close, yet very far away. The last time I saw him, he perched on the sofa of our hotel room as if he were ready to fly. We are not the same age, he said. This seemed like an obvious fact, and one that might have been noted already. I'm not worried about it, I said. Are you? I took his hand and it was cold. I wanted to say, please don't fret about nonsense. I yanked him off the sofa and right into my arms. We danced to Lucinda Williams. I felt sad that he had said it and was shivering a bit. He held me tight as a 20-year-old, but felt as light as a paper doll. So weightless, I could have carried him home in my arms. How did your wife find out? I said. He held me until my tremor settled down. The phone started to ring. I knew it was the last time we would ever meet. Don't let her shoot you, I said. I could have carried him home in my arms. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Meg.
Thanks.
So
Dress sort of conservative. Well, you're next.
Pamela, right? Pam Painter?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So I have the pleasure of introducing Pamela Painter. She is the prize-winning author of 5 story collections. Her work has received 3 Pushcart prizes and appears in Best Small Fictions 2023 and Best Microfiction 2023.
State.
Greetings, everyone. And what a wonderful group that's assembled here. Some people that I haven't seen for ages, like Mary Grimm. Hello, Mary. Anyway, I'm going to read a Kathryn's story, and congratulations to Kathryn for her book. This story was in Milk Candy Review, and it's one that Francine used in one of her prompt sessions. So that's where I first encountered it. Little Runaway. Bus stop, wet day. Here you are, waiting in the rain like a girl in an old sad song. You finally have a chance to be lonely, unprotected, no longer snug in your mother's soft flannel coat pocket, to be the stranger, the outsider, the girl at the bus stop hoping she's getting on the right bus because she doesn't know anyone to ask, standing by the trash barrel with its peeling black bars, avoiding the man on the bench singing about red, red roses. Where have the roses gone? There are no roses here. A car slinks by, long and low, dinosaur footprints of bass, stomping out of half-closed windows. You fade back onto the sidewalk, pretend to study rain-torn flyers on telephone poles. Missing, lost, have you seen me? Girls who stole away or were stolen. Girls who are not you, but who could be. You've never lived in a place where it rains every day. Smell of clothes drying on radiators, crumbling mulch, eucalyptus buttons. Even the wood of the windowsill gone soft. So soft your fingernails leave crescent moon marks when you stare out your window with no curtains, only the green aquarium light filtered through pine trees and rain. I could still go home, you think. You think of your phone, smashed and sparkling on a dust-dry highway miles from here. The wood gets softer every day.
Put yourself on speaker.
Am I not on speaker?
No, I meant,
Oh,
that. Well, I think it's just everybody's is different.
I don't know. Okay. And now I'm going to read one of my own stories. I've been just using zombies. I don't know why I'm fascinated with zombies. But this story was published in 5 points and it's titled Enough Beauty in This World. I think zombies are beautiful, my boyfriend says, firing up a skinny blunt. He's already put in a day's work on his zombie comic. A bad influence. He takes another hit before sending the blunt over to me. Deep eyes, dove gray skin, soft moans, that graceful dance they do, he says, holding his hand out, 2 fingers ready for the blunt's return. I ignore him. They don't dance. Zombies lurch, I say. I rise and lurch over to the fridge for the first cold one of the day. It feels so good, loose. Arms dangling, knees wobbly, my ass dipping. I lurch back. Digby lumbers up to lurch with me. Around and around our tiny apartment, we lurch. Besides, there is enough beauty in this world, so zombies don't have to be beautiful, he says. I lurch over to hand him the blunt. Every time I wonder what I'm doing with Digby, he comes up with something to keep me here. I mean, who thinks like that? Who else finds zombies beautiful? Who else would want to lurch with me?
Good. You did a great job.
I love that, Pam. Now I would like to introduce Francine Witte, who is our wonderful guest host for the evening. Francine is a poet, flash fiction writer, and a playwright. Her latest flash fiction book is Just Outside the Tunnel of Love. Please visit her website at francinewitte.com.
Thank you, Kathryn. And, I want to do the Ed Sullivan thing and just point out people, luminaries in the audience, but I would have to point out everybody. What a wonderful crowd this is. Testament certainly to Kathryn and Sarah, for sure. So I'm going to read from Kathryn's new book, that can't really see because it's blurred, Cooking Tips for the Demon Haunted. The girl dies at the end. That's why people remember the story. That's why we still tell it. The girl dies at the end, because that's what girls do in stories. The girl dies because she's lonely, The girl dies because she's bored, because she wanted more from life than this small town. The girl dies because she left the party early, because she didn't leave the party until it was too late, because she left with that boy, because she got into that car, because she had sex, because she was about to have sex, because she gave every indication that having sex was something she might eventually think about doing. The girl dies because there can only be one final girl, and it isn't her. The girl dies at the beginning. She gives us the hook. The girl dies in the middle. She keeps the story from lagging. The girl dies at the end. She wraps the plot up in a neat red ribbon tied around the neck of the dead girl sprawled in an alley, found in a field, discovered by a jogger, uncovered by a hunter, wrapped in butcher paper, shrouded in a plastic bag. A case to crack, a mystery to solve. Nothing succeeds like a girl who's deceased. Everyone tells the same story because it's the story we want to hear, even when we say we don't, even when we say we hate those stories. The story I'm telling you now, even though I didn't mean to. So that's The Girl Dies in the End from Kathryn's book, Cooking Tips for the Demon Haunted. And congratulations to you, Kathryn. I could have easily pointed my finger at any one of, Kathryn's stories. She's really, I love her that much. So I'm going to read one of mine. And this story was actually in Cleaver magazine. And Kathryn nominated it for Best Microfiction and it got in there. So, as a thank you to you, Kathryn. It's ghost time again, and my mother doesn't know, but I know, and it shivers me like stone February to see this ghost that's not at all like my father, who is lonely and clean-shaven. This ghost doesn't give a hoot that my mother is asleep, but I'm not so sure she'd stop it. Because if sleeping in separate rooms is any indication, my father hasn't touched her in years. And that started around the time he lost his job and moved himself a sock at a time, a shirt at a time, until he was gone. And now they are both sexless. But at least my mother has sleep. Not like it used to be with her walking the floorboards, tango or foxtrot or whatever the hell. I live in a room under hers, and when she stopped moving, I went up there. And that's when I saw the ghost, his white, ghosty sex hand trailing up her nightgown, and she'd moan and shift, and she really seemed to like it. Big smile crossing her sleepy face. And that's when I came to realize that a ghost can be a better lover than a real life lover. And it just might change how I think about dating and marriage, which, to tell you the truth, is kind of a dead thing anyway. Thank you. Well, thank you, Kathryn and Meg and Pam. And I just want to say parenthetically, we had Kathryn, Meg, and Pam and I had a really good time up in Cambridge back in April. We visited and we all had lunch together. And Pam is like just this wonderful cook. She doesn't have that in her bio, but I'm telling you. And she's just as wonderful as could be, just as like so hospitable and just so wonderful. And it was really just a treat. Okay, now we move on to Sarah Freligh. Oh, and I want to say, like, I asked people to use very short bios for this, but if people want to put your if you want to put your bio into the chat, a longer bio, that's fine. Because heaven knows any of these people could have like at least a page of accomplishments. All right, Sarah Freligh is the author of 5 books, including Sad Math, winner of the 2014 Moon City Press Poetry Prize and the 2015 Whirling Prize from the University of Indianapolis. And the recently released A Brief Natural History of Women from Harbor Editions. Beautiful book, just a gorgeous cover. Sarah's work has appeared in the Cincinnati Review micro series, Smoke Long Quarterly, The Wiggly 50, and in the anthologies New Micro, Exceptionally Short Fiction, which is Norton, it's a Norton anthology, 2018, and Best Microfictions 2019 and 2022. Among her awards are poetry fellowships from the National Endowment of the Arts, well-deserved, and the Salton Stall Foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, the wonderful Sarah Freligh.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Francine. Thank you for inviting me here. It's such an honor to read with Kathryn and everybody else. After I finish reading, I'll be introducing my crew and can't wait to hear them read. Thank you, everybody, too, for being here. I wish we could all be in one big room, but this is almost just as good. So, you know, like, thanks an awful lot for being here. I'm going to read 3 pieces from A Brief Natural History of Women. All of them are brief natural history stories. The first one is A Brief Natural History of Lipstick. We learned to paint our mouths kissable, but were taught not to by the parish priest, by our mothers, by 17 magazine. Never on the first date, never more than one boy at a time, never below the neck. We practiced on the mirror and at slumber parties. When boys scratched on the window, we giggled and shivered. Only Lana slipped out, came back smeared and tight-lipped, full up with stories she wouldn't tell us. At school on Monday, we lipsticked the mirror in the 3rd floor girls' room. Lana sucks. Later, we all learned. Later, we all did it. A Brief Natural History of the Automobile. Your father insists that you pray daily to Henry Ford, the patron saint of Michigan, who puts steak on the table and keeps sneakers on your feet, but you're not willing to die for him. It's all because of Henry Ford and his automobiles that the Cubans are pointing their missiles at Detroit right now, according to your geography teacher. The Cubans will aim their bombs right here, she says, jabbing at the wall map of Michigan, its vulnerable thumb. They'll shoot them at the Ambassador Bridge and Tiger Stadium and at the beating steel heart of the River Rouge Ford plant and blast it all into a pile of dust. You decide you don't want to die without doing it, though you're not clear on what it is. You suspect it has something to do with boys and what Donald Spatz does to you in the AV room. Donald Spatz has palms like swamps and too much spit in his mouth, but you let him press you up against the shelves of film strips and slide his tongue between your teeth. Afterward, he cracks his knuckles and said, "Boy, what he'd like to do to those commies." Years from now, Donald Spatz will die in Vietnam in a village that's not on any map. His 12th grade face will smile out forever from the trophy case in the high school lobby. You were riding on top of a snow-white 1967 Impala convertible, waving to the nearly empty street as if twisting a light bulb. Your driver, a guy from the dealership, has patent leather hair and sneers when you decline his offer of a cigarette. You suspect he would rather be driving Dolores Heiser, best body, who thinks a bachelor's degree is something a college awards to unmarried men, or Betsy Gilchrist, most fun on a date. Your driver is not impressed that you were voted most likely to succeed. This is apparent from the way he brakes too suddenly and corners too fast, forcing you to plant the tips of your imitation satin slippers in the crevice of the seat so you don't roll over like the Titanic while you wave and smile. You do it for the first time in the back seat of your 1970 Mustang, a graduation present from your father. You're 19, it's time. You do it with a French-Canadian hockey player who likes to caress your chrome bumpers with hands the size of shovels. You like how his hands spread you across the buttery leather of the back seat. Except for Puck and hello, he speaks no English, which is fine. You like to drive in silence. You fall for a man who names his cars after Greek gods and croons Sinatra tunes while he waxes their bodies. Like you, he loves driving anywhere and nowhere. You study maps at gas stations on back roads while he shows off his 66 GTO to the mechanics who migrate like crusaders to the car. While they worship at the altar of the engine, you follow blue highways with your forefinger, tracing the route you'll never take to Mexico. Your husband whistles as he folds you into his Corvette and tells you to hold on for the ride of your life. At the hospital, you're wheeled into a dark room away from your husband, your unindicted co-conspirator. Headlights are shined into your eyes, a semi rolls over your stomach. While you push out a human, your husband hands out cigars and swaps car stories with two other men in the waiting room. You're no longer a sports car, but a utility vehicle whose body is chipped and dinged. You have gray roots and frown lines and 10 pounds that won't go away. Your best friend is your hairstylist, who calls you honey, and girlfriend, as has sworn a blood oath to tell you whenever you have chin hair. Your daughter endures you. She slumps in the passenger seat, refusing to speak. The pediatrician tells you not to worry. It's a phrase she'll grow out of. She'd rather drive with her father, who lets her steer and never says no. Your husband no longer goes to the barber, but he meets weekly with his stylist, a woman who shellacks his hair into an aerodynamic fin that hides his bald spot. Your husband stands in the mirror, studying his stomach. He begins to wear cologne. You begin to snoop. You find a copy of the Kama Sutra for Dummies in his briefcase from your little Mercedes with buku love. You understand completely. Your husband has always wanted a Mercedes. Now he's found himself a good used one. Your car dives on a dark night on a road with no cell service, so you must walk. Your shoes pinch and your right ankle cracks, but the air is sweet with hickory smoke and roses. Maybe you'll invest in some comfortable shoes and an iPod. Teach yourself French in 15 easy lessons. Maybe you walk across France. Maybe you'll learn to say no. Maybe you sing as you walk, not away anymore, but towards something you sense is there. Henry Ford and Mort. Viva Henry Ford. And the last one is a brief natural history of the girls in the office. Early on, the engagements and weddings, and after that, the babies and the christenings and first communions. Each time we passed a white envelope from desk to desk, whatever we could spare, a buck or two, 5 if it was payday and we were feeling flush. Sometimes there was cake, and we'd flip a coin for the corner piece with a heap of sugared roses that went down sweetly with just the right ache. Later on, potluck lunches together in the break room, where we learned to like Inez's potato salad with its pucker of onions, Melinda's tuna noodle casserole crusted with saltines, the shortbread cookies Judy made from a recipe that was willed to her by her grandmother. Sometimes, and only on Fridays, we sneaked in a bottle of something bubbly to sweeten our iced tea on last break, warm us up for the weekend ahead. Soon enough, the sorrow. The kids moved out and never called. Parents died and husbands left us for women with clear skin and stomachs unpouched by babies. Cancer helped itself to breasts and ovaries. Chemo took what was left of the feeling in fingers and toes, took the hair we'd spent our lives fussing with. We passed the envelope again, this time for flowers, and said, what the hell? The few of us who were left started bowling together on Wednesdays, pretending the pins we scattered were second wives or the exes who were late again with the support. We pulled coins from our purses and split pitchers of beer afterward, something cheap and yeasty to wash down the baskets of stale potato chips we dipped into ketchup or drowned in malt vinegar. We clicked our plastic cups together before the first sip, saying, one more week. Sometimes we closed down the bar and lingered in the parking lot, watched bugs swarm and bump up against the blue lights. Sometimes we went out for breakfast and cried into our over-easies, hold the toast. Sometimes we wondered who would pass the envelope for us. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Water, and I don't have any. Okay, I'm very excited to introduce my readers. I'm just thrilled that they're here today. First up is Kim Magowan, the author of the short story collection, How Far I've Come, the novel, The Light Source, and the short story collection, Undoing, which won the 2017 Moon City Press Fiction Award. Kim's fiction has been published in many journals and has been selected for Best Small Fictions and Wigleaf's Top 50. She's the editor-in-chief and fiction editor of Pithead Chapel. Welcome, Kim, and thank you.
Hi, everyone. I feel very starstruck looking at all your faces. Huge congratulations to Kathryn, whose book I just ordered, and of course to Sarah. And the story I'm going to read of Sarah's is a micro that we published in Pithead Chapel. And I remember when I first saw this in the queue, emailing all of my editor team saying, you have to read this right now. And I think we probably accepted it that day. Is that right, Sarah? It was fast. And it was also in Best Microfiction. So we have excellent taste. So this is called Your Life as a Bottle. Your life is a bottle. Closing time, you hang out with the dishwashers who keep a bottle tucked behind the toilet tank in the employee's restroom, something rot gut and low down that tastes of Lysol and piss. A shot or two does the trick, makes it so you don't hate the cute girls with good teeth and cleavage, delivering last call martinis to rich guys while you're stuck in the kitchen refilling condiments. You're superstitious enough to pinch salt over your shoulder whenever you spill it, fool enough to whisper a wish. You marry your ketchups and a little ceremony. Who takes this woman? Though it's less a commitment and more like pickup sex. Random bottles tipped together lip to lip, each bleeding quick and urgent into the other, while their caps stew clean in scalding water. Later, you'll head to a bar where you'll drink yourself pretty under the black light of the dance floor. Later, you'll find somebody to tip yourself into, and anybody who will empty you out and leave you clean. Love that story so much, Sarah. And then I'm going to read a micro of mine. This was in my How Far I've Come book and originally published in Wigleaf. And it's called Middle Ages. I think Michelle Ross is here somewhere. And I think Michelle came up with the title. She comes up with many of my titles. Okay, so Middle Ages. Middle Ages. My stepdaughter, Sally, is studying the Middle Ages, and I'm explaining to her the concept of cause and effect. Okay, it's like this, I say. When you tell your mom that your dad and I drink too much, the effect is that she becomes hysterical. And the further effect of that is I question your maturity and stop letting you have sips of wine at dinner. I get it, says Sally. It's like you go to some microchip conference 3 years ago and think my dad is cute. And the effect is he bails on us. And suddenly we're broke because he's busy buying you those $1 million light fixtures. So no one can afford the one decent school where all my friends happen to go. So I'm stuck at a shitty school with paranoid nuns who sniff me all the time. Sniff you? Why do they sniff you? I say. She says, we can't figure out if it's to check if we're smoking pot or if we're wearing perfume. Sister Agatha disapproves of perfume or has an allergy or something, as if any of them would know how pot smells. There are times when I want to leave Ross, who can be a selfish prick, and who is, as my mother used to say, set in his ways. But my stepdaughter, wiry and sharp-edged as a twisty tie, is my favorite person in the world. So congratulations, Sarah. Love your book.
Thank you so much, Kim. Thank you. I'm going to hire people to read my stories for me because they do it much better than I do. Anyways, next up is Mary Grimm. I'm so happy to have Mary here. She's had 2 books published, the novel Left to Themselves and a short story collection, Stealing Time. And I should add a personal note in here. I first read Mary's iconic story, We, in the New Yorker in the October 1988 edition, and it made this journalist want to start writing fiction. So thank you for that, Mary. Currently, she's working on an urban fantasy set in the flats area of a near future dystopian Cleveland. Welcome, Mary Grimm.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks for asking me to read. I'm very pleased. And thanks, Francine, for moderating too. And I want to say that I love Sarah as a writer and as a poet and a flash fiction writer, but also I love her as a lake swimmer. You know, I love when she posts those pictures of the beach where she has just swum or is just about to swim. Okay, I'm going to read. I would say that this is one of my favorites in the book, but you know, I had so many favorites, many favorites, but I really, really like this one a lot, which is A Brief Natural History of How It Is to Be a Girl. We're bleeders, or will be. This is what they tell us in a dark room, blinds drawn, rows of desks, just so no Bigfoot boys to distract us from the screen. Here is this, and this, they tell us, tidy lima beans of uterus, twin snakes of fallopian tubes, into which we'll hatch eggs once a month for forever. Such a lovely thing to be a girl, they tell us. Never what we'll need to know, like how to not wear white around that time of the month, how to tie a cardigan, to hide where we've leaked, how to plug the leak, how to pray that we'll make it to the bathroom, pray that no one's ripped the Kotex machine off the wall and flung it into one of the stalls for the just because of it, for the oh so damn good to scream and throw thing days, how it feels to be fizzed up, a bottle of rage waiting for an occasion to uncork and unload, how our skin will become a radar dish for the hurt of the world, how we'll wish we could unzip ourselves and wear the dull side out, how we're told to hush the yes in our girl bodies, so much yes in the dark, so much oh no. I love those lima beans, the lima beans. The lima beans are so great. And then I'm going to read a flash piece of mine, which is really, I guess, a micro because it's very short. And this was published first in the Cabinet of Heed, which I love, but also love that. I love their name. Called When We Lived in the Mall. My aunt lived in a jewelry store. We ate lunch on the glass cases, admiring the gleam of diamonds while I picked the celery from my egg salad. Every afternoon, we visited Mom, who was sewing a tent, which every woman will want when the world falls apart. The restrooms were much cleaner than you'd think, although we dreamed of hot baths. When we lived in the mall, we gave up buying things. Whenever we wanted to crisp a piece of bread, we had only to go to the toaster aisle. For entertainment, there was the wall of TVs at the electronics store, 50 screens with a confusing game of soccer, or the giant head of a man trying to sell us a set of knives. The sound system played nothing but Carly Simon, which my sister and I deplored. But my cousin felt that Carly had helped her through some hard times in her life, and that even in the mall, she might need to hear "You're So Vain" at any moment. My daughter did tarot readings in the old J.C. Penney's, sitting professionally behind the defunct register. The cards foretold the past as accurately as you might imagine. She offered a receipt if needed for taxes. My mother and my aunt thought most often about the old times. They kept these memories to themselves, but we knew when they were remembering things like backyards and mailboxes. I admitted to missing the sky, but would go no further. We thought at times that an official history should be written, complete with fold-out maps and a CD, but no one wanted to do the research. My sister and I had our own place in the bookstore, for books are insulating, as everyone knows. At night, sheltered by our page-thickened walls, we read in the glow of a flashlight, our heads pillowed on paperbacks, the book roof protecting us from the pale struts and panels of the dropped and deadly ceiling. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary. That micro is a novel in and of itself. Next up is Myna Chang. Her chapbook, The Potential of Radio and Rain, was released earlier this year by Cutbank Books. Her writing has been selected for W.W. Norton's Flash Fiction America, Best Small Fictions, and Craft. And you can find her online at mynachang.com. Thanks so much, Myna, for reading.
Thank you for inviting me, Sarah. I'm pretty excited to be here. And congratulations on the book, and congratulations also, Kathryn, on your wonderful book. And thanks, Francine, for putting all this together. I was pretty excited to get to pick one of Sarah's stories, and it was hard to do, but Skinny Dip is one of my favorites in this book. So I'm going to read that one. This was in New World Writing. So Skinny Dip. We do it on nights when the stars hang low and heavy, ripe fruit in a black bowl of sky. Nights when we're so stoned, we make bets about when the stars will fall on us. We're always stoned, so what? The guy from Detroit is always the first to take off his pants, the last to jump in. Snakes, he says, or eels. He swims head out like a dog, coughs water, a pot smoker's wet hack. Years from now, the cops will find him in a car trunk, shot once through the head, the pound of cocaine he was carrying long gone. For years, I'll mouth-to-mouth him back to life. I'll dream him awake. He floats face up forever in a stew of stars, a body at rest, patiently waiting. Is it? That one. So I wasn't sure what to read of my own, and my husband suggested a really goofy one. So this is probably going to be weird, but this was in Janus Literary a couple of years ago. It's called The Sharpest Teeth in the Swamp. Every morning, Uncle Leon's out there baby talking his favorite gator, Ethel. Who's the smartest girl? Yes, you are, he coos in his old man growl. I'd pull the pillow over my head, but cousin Tommy Dobbs already bouncing his dodgeball, boing on the kitchen floor, boing on the porch, boing, boing, boing against my bedroom wall. What good's an alligator farm if you can't use it to dispose of an annoying cousin now and then? I drag my fingernail across my teeth, clickety click click, to drown out the boinging. He's too dumb for my Ethel, Uncle Leon says when I try to recruit him to my way of thinking. Digesting Tommy Dobb would lower her IQ, but I'm sure he's considered it too. Sometimes he watches Tommy Dobb bouncing that ball, boing against the snake traps, boing on the boat dock, boing, boing against the gate to Ethel's pen. I know Uncle Leon's thinking how glorious it'd be to hear nothing but the snap gnash of the gators ripping into their mid-morning rats, boing free. The gators in pen number 4 are already stupid, I observe, clickety click. Uncle Leon squints at me. Not the sharpest teeth in the swamp, he grunts. I nod eager understanding and scoop up a bucket of fancy freeze-dried squirrels, an extra treat for the gators in gratitude for their disposal services. Tommy Dobb, come help me. He bounces over, boing, boing, and grabs a stiffified squirrel tail. How come the gate's open, he says. A wave of number 4 stupid gators surges around us, and I wonder, clickety click, if I forgot to latch their pen last night. Hungry jaws crack wide, their stupid yellow teeth glinting snappity gnash in the early breakfast light. Don't you worry, Ethel, Uncle Leon coos. I won't feed you any dum-dums. That's it. That's everyone. And that's it for me.
Back to you, Francine. Thank you, everybody, for reading, and thank you for reading my stories. It really, I'm just really moved and touched. It's like being at your own funeral, kind of. Oh, well. Thank you very much for inviting me. Back to you, Francine.
Oh, it's wonderful. It's just a wonderful group of readers. And just, if you look in the chat, people have been commenting and just the lines that keep coming out, and it's just one after the other. So I encourage all the readers to just check out the chat. Okay, we're gonna have 4 additional guest readers. And the first one is Mikki Aronoff, who scribbles away in New Mexico. Her most recent publication is a hybrid flash in the journal Does It Have Pockets? Mikki Aronoff.
Thank you. I am so thrilled to be here. I look around at everybody, and every one of you, you've all lit my path since I started writing flash. And I'm just so grateful. And again, huge congratulations to Kathryn and Sarah for your wonderful books. I'm so pleased to have them. I'm going to read 2 stories that popped up in Meg's workshops. Thank you, Meg. The first one was published in Flash Boulevard. Thank you, Francine. It's called Hocus Pocus. Cinderella, you're not, the old woman grumbles, pocketing the bill. But I'll try anyway. Chopped liver, I nod, mumble, that's why I've come. I cross my fingers and scrunch my eyes against the glare as her wand convulses over my head and atonal incantations drone in my ear. Soon the smell of candle wax and myrrh clogs my nostrils and my thoughts blur with visions of me all smoothed out and limber. Seems like hours have passed since I've inhaled sweet resin and heard Madam chanting. So I shift in my chair, a wriggling bundle of expectancies, open my eyes to night's inky silence. Universe is not micromanaging today, claims the scribbled note on the table. The greenbacks I paid crumbled and stuffed back into my purse. My toenails splitting and fungal, gray hair patching, clumping on the floor. I guess that's pretty gross. Okay, the next one is Clutch, which was published by 100 Word Story. So it's a short one. The way I remember it, your dad was dying, not mine. His purple blotched feet peeking out the edge of the hospice bed, its cold rails raised against a fall. Either a cross or a froth of agnosticism clutched in one hand. Either the priest or the doctor slouched in the hallway, a Bible or a sleep-packed syringe in a chokehold. Peonies slumping in vases. Was it your mother or mine shopping for a black dress or pantsuit? A take-home roast beef or ham and scalloped potatoes for guests not yet gathered? Grandchildren galloping, quarreling in the yard, clucking like chickens. Thank you.
Thank you, Mikki Aronoff. That was wonderful. Next, we have Patricia Bidar. Patricia Q. Bidar is a Western writer whose work has been widely published and anthologized. She serves on staff at Smoke Lawn Quarterly and Quarterly West. Her collection of short fiction is forthcoming in 2025 from Unsolicited Press. Patricia Bidar.
Thank you, Francine. And again, thank you for hosting this wonderful, wonderful evening. I cannot believe the faces I'm seeing and the voices I've heard. It really is very exciting to me. And congratulations, of course, Sarah and Kathryn. Your books are going to be so great, or they already are so great. This story, I bet you anything, I wrote this in a Meg Pokrass workshop where I met many of you, and how many of us or connected through Meg. I was just especially amazed to see her here this evening. The story is called Trust, and kind of funny aside, there's an literature journal called Freligh-ZOOM that lots of people were submitting to, and I was going to submit to that too. So I submitted the story to Ellipsis, and it turned out it was a completely different Ellipsis. It was Ellipsis, a university journal out of Salt Lake City, and it ended up being really cool. It's a print journal, so no one would have seen it, you know, but I'm very thrilled that they took it anyway. It's called Trust, and it came out in May 2019, and I drafted it at Meg Pokrass workshop. Okay. Cherished Patty, I cover you with a cape of protection. We watch it float to your shoulders. I gaze at your reflection in my round mirror splashed with keepsakes my other friends have brought me from their vacations in New Orleans and Las Vegas and the Holy Land. I know you think they are cheap and tacky. I know you photograph my decor when I'm around the corner mixing your hair coloring. You text the photos to your friends. Sometimes I go out and have a smoke. You are happy playing with your mobile phone. Then I stand behind you and grasp your hair, splaying it out and scratching your head as though you are my beloved cat. I urge you to remove your earrings, placing them on the narrow counter in front of my mirror. I ooh and ah your turquoise amber. I lift and remove your thick lensed eyeglasses so the chemicals will not harm their stems. I amuse you with stories of my youth in the Ukraine, how I would try new things with my hair for novelty's sake, like shaving back my hairline, or sporty cornrows, or dyeing it the matte black of a charcoal briquette. I tell you about the time I dyed my hair a volatile red, so stylish. It was from my only trip home 15 years back. How I arrived at the airport and all the Ukrainian ladies I saw had their hair in the same fox red shade. I am helping you grow your style out and lightening it over time. You joke that you are trying to look like me. But you do not know my looks, not the way I know yours. Patty, I know your skull, your hairline, that weird curly patch. I know about your affair. Without your eyeglasses, you see only blurs. We have that trust. I'm aware you have seen the fleshy growths on the back of my head, the ones I cover with my honey-hued waves. I registered your shock before you averted your eyes. I soothe your fears when you come to me in a whirl over the latest thing President Trump has broadcasted on social media. I give you Russian tea. I give you samples of hair products good for our baby fine hair. I give you a chunk of honeycomb. I wrap it for you in aluminum foil twisted into the shape of a swan. You take a photo of me proffering it. It never occurs to you I'll see it on Instagram. You just love to keep up on the news. The day of that terrible fire in the Russian mall, you asked me what I think. You have tears in your eyes. I tell you, it was definitely worse than you think. Way back when, you may have actually heard about Chernobyl before I did. I was there for the people lifting up their babies to see the weirdly beautiful light. But what I'm saying is, you might have heard the truth. This is what it is to be Ukrainian, to throw yourself dreamless on the fire, defend, sacrifice. Dread is something inside of us, Patty, like a ghost I and my countrymen harbor. A full day after Chernobyl, volunteers appeared to shampoo the streets. From behind our curtains, we watched in our robes. Over and over this happened in the early mornings, shampooing and shampooing. Hand mirror aloft, I spin you with care and tell you that if anything, your hair is thicker. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Patricia. That was beautiful.
Thank you, Francine.
Patricia Bidar, wonderful work. Our next reader is Jacqueline Doyle. Jacqueline Doyle's award-winning flash chapbook, The Missing Girl, is available from Black Lawrence Press. She's published in Wigleaf, Matchbook, and Midway Journal, where her flash Zigzag won the 1,000 Below contest. Jacqueline Doyle.
Thank you. I wish it was $1,000, but still, it was the most I ever got paid for a flash. So thank you, Francine, for arranging all this. And this has just been such a wonderful reading. I don't want it to be over, but it's not quite. There's someone after me, Kathryn. I'm a longtime fan of both of our keynote readers, and I love their books, which I have read and absolutely adored, and most of the contents read before the books came out. I'm also happy to see so many people here just by chance, I think, who've published flash fiction and flash nonfiction in Craft, where I'm the creative nonfiction editor. And the very short flash I chose to read tonight was published in Craft before I took my editorial position there. It's called Girls in the Woods. Two teenage girls walk along the side of the highway laughing as the wind blows their hair in their faces and flutters the hems of their short summer dresses. Roadside dust swirls around them with every passing car. They've missed the bus from the mall again. They don't want to call their mothers to pick them up. She's always on my case, says one. You're so irresponsible, says the other, mimicking her mother's voice. Wicked stepmother, a friend says, she's just jealous. No light penetrates the dark thicket that lines the road. The sky turns pewter gray, afternoon shading into evening. They've walked the mile home before, twice. Surely nothing bad can happen to 13-year-old girls when there are two of them. They're almost grown up. It's not so far. When the battered maroon pickup slows and the pale-eyed man with the red baseball cap leans out the passenger window and calls, "Want a lift, ladies?" They laugh and shake their heads. No, better not. They hurry on, giggling. The pickup keeps pace, and then the passenger door is opening, and the girls look at each other in alarm and grab each other's hands as they veer off the shoulder of the road into the woods, crashing through the underbrush, looking back to see the pickup stopped, two men running after them. They've heard all the stories about girls lost in the woods. Gretel, abandoned by her mother in the forest. Snow White, banished by her wicked stepmother to the forest. Little Red Riding Hood, sent off by her mother on a trip to grandma's through the dark woods. But this couldn't be. They run faster, breathless, stumbling in their flimsy sandals, no longer laughing. Branches scratch their arms and faces and sting their eyes. There's no one in sight to guide them or rescue them, just trees and rocks and bushes and the agitated twittering of birds. The witch is dead. Gretel's mother, Snow White's stepmother, Little Red Riding Hood's grandmother, all dead. Maybe the girls will be rescued by a handsome woodcutter, or sheltered by creepy dwarfs, or picked up by a pervert prince on a hunting trip. They'll outrun the hunters who'll tire of the chase. They won't outrun the hunters. They'll be devoured by wolves, or worse. It's dark. Their hearts pound. They sob. There's no looking back, no thinking ahead now. Run, run faster, run. They stumble on tangled roots, sink into patches of mud hidden under damp leaves, lose their shoes. Have the men given up? Where are the girls headed? There are so many paths in these woods. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. That's Jacqueline Doyle. Wonderful story. Our last reader is Kathryn Silver-Hajo. She's a 2023 Pushcart Prize Best Small Fictions and Best American Food Writing nominee. Her flash collection Wolf Song was published in 2023. Great little book there. And her story, The Sweet Softness of Dates, made the 2023 Wigleaf Top 50 long list. Kathryn Silver-Hajo.
Thank you, Francine. And thank you so much, other Kathryn and Francine, for inviting me to be a guest reader. It's just such a joy to be here among so many incredibly talented, beautiful souls. So I'm really honored to be here. I'm going to read 3 micros, and honestly, I feel like, as Mikki said, almost every one of you has had some very important influence in my work in many different ways. And so it's wonderful to see everybody here. This first one is the one Francine read in my little bio. It's in my new book, Wolf Song, and actually it is the last story in this book that was nominated for the Wigleaf long list. Sweet Softness of Dates. She sits in her wicker chair, the one painted bright green, because that's how she likes it. She lets the sweet softness of dates linger on her tongue, makes a small mound of pits on the seat next to her, where the others won't see it and scald her for making a mess. The air coming in through the veranda windows smells of the sea and the bread bakery down below, and exhaust from those damned motorbikes that roar the wrong way down the street day and night, day and night. Some poor dog is yowling, probably chased by a snot-nosed kid with a stick whose family didn't raise him right. Who am I? They ask. Who are you? What year is it? Where were you born? So many questions. Do they take me for a fool? I've survived war, a love that couldn't be, and a marriage without it. Children who left me to go here, there, and everywhere. A body once sturdy and beautiful that has grown stiff and feeble and fragile. So don't ask me who I am or what I remember. I am the air you breathe, the world you think of as yours. I am hands that have birthed 1,000 babies, helped girls, barely women in distress, do what they felt they must. Cooked countless meals when all I wanted was to put up my feet. These eyes have seen more than you'll ever know or understand. So don't ask me, don't feed me, don't try to make me sleep or walk in circles around the apartment in the building I built. Just leave me in the peace I've never known, but have finally found. It is mine to take. Thank you. This next one is a tiny little micro that was recently published in New Flash Fiction Review, and I wrote it in a workshop with Meg, 50-word workshop. She'd always been sure he'd outlive her. It was the meanness, like embalming fluid, shoring him up. His penchant for whiskey and planting purple plum kisses across her body deadened her will. But someday she'd find a way. So when he dropped, Glenfiddich splattering the carpet, she waited, a heartbeat and a nail trim before making the call. Thanks. And lastly, I'm going to read another 50-word story, which was recently published in Your Impossible Voice. Bess recalls the Great Depression. She paints WPA-inspired scenes of fishermen and farmhands, the frame shop on Flatbush, a ruckus of wood and wire, tools and nails. Sid measures, hammers, curses. Bess regales with tales of bill collectors pounding the front door while they tiptoed out the back. Our Tom and Jerry routine, she sighs.
Thank you, Kathryn Silver-Hajo. Those are beautiful pieces.
Thank you.
So I'm going to turn it over to Kathryn briefly. Kathryn Kulpa. She wants to give away some swag. Kathryn Kulpa.
So I have a few things to give away, and I'm just going to do it where I'll ask a question and the first person who answers in the chat is the winner, and then I'll just need your name and address to mail these things to. So I have here a notebook, which is the cover of my book and blank to write on. So who among you still likes to write in a notebook? Oh my goodness. Okay, I have a lot of, I think Georgia was the first person that said me. So just send me your address and I will send you a notebook.
No,
And
I was the first one.
Kirsten?
Kristen, yeah.
Okay. I may have two. Why don't you both send me your info and I'll make sure if I have two. If not, because it looks on my screen. I see Georgia just before you, but I think I have enough for both. Thank you. And the other thing I have is a coffee mug with a wonderful illustration, which is also the logo for my Substack. It's called Feed Your Demons. And it's a kind of spooky mid-century housewife with some ravens and of course a black cat. So, and the question for this one is, who could not live without coffee? All of us. Oh my goodness. Okay. Let's go back here. Gosh. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the chat and I'm trying to figure out which.
Sarah.
Was it Sarah? It was 7:25. Yeah, I think you're right. So Sarah, you get the mug to be filled with coffee.
I yield to
Here.
I yield to the second person after me, since I am blessed by immeasurable riches. And it looks like Patricia is the next person after me. So Patricia Bidar, you
Me?
get a coffee mug. Yes, you girl.
I'm a winner. Thank you, Sarah. And Kathryn.
So you can send me your info. I'll just type my email address here.
Okay, Kathryn.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'll be handing it back to Francine.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to turn off the recording in a moment, but we can still hang out if you all like to. I do want to thank the two new authors, not that they're new authors, but the new books, Sarah Freligh and Kathryn Kulpa. And these were just wonderful stories, wonderful readings. Pam Painter, Meg Pokrass, Kim Magowan, Mary Grimm, Myna Chang, Jackie Doyle, Kathryn Silver-Hajo, Patricia Bidar, and Mikki Aronoff. Just wonderful. And all of you in the audience, my goodness. I just feel so honored that you all came tonight. And, but like I said, testament to the readers here. All I had to do was send out the link and there you are. So I will be posting the recording shortly. And thank you all for being here, and bid you all good night.